Welcome. I'm Mark. I'm joined by Andy Tillision of The Tangent. Thank you so much for stopping by today.
Thank you.
And, well, I just wanted to, we've seen you play at in two venues, and what do you think is different about the newer albums than the older albums besides the lineup?
Well, I think that, you know, we've obviously had a natural development that's come from the first record.
Right.
Because although the first record came out in 2003, we have to remember that an awful lot of it was written in the 1970s rather than...
Really?
Right. And so that when that album got released, it was kind of like a 70s album that had never been recorded at the time. And of course I was using a different band then. The Flower Kings were very highly involved with that recording. Then of course I had to follow it up, and I followed it up with mainly new songs that were in the same kind of frame of mind. And once again we had the Flower Kings, and Roy Stolt was involved in it, played a very important role in the way the album sounded. And naturally, as the musicians began to change, and which has been a story of the Tangent, the constantly changing lineups, you know, we began to develop, you know, the nuts and bolts of what the Tangent is, and like, you know, obviously the songwriting's still coming from the same way, but it's just the way different musicians approached the thing differently. And of course, in the end, this is, you know, there are disadvantages of having a changing lineup, but of course there are advantages. And the advantages are that you get new ideas coming in from other people, new different styles and things that eventually change it. Of course, you know, King Crimson are famous for that, you know, the fact that, you know, they did not make the Court of the Crimson King 9 times, they made it twice. But then, like, then they moved on and did, you know, very different things with different people, and I guess that's just how we've been. And we get, you know, there are bands like Rush who've kept there with the original lineup, almost the original lineup all the time, and Van der Graaf Generator who have always stuck to people who were originally in the group and never brought new blood in, and they do very well. But you know, the Tangent's a fluctuating thing, and of course, you know, Luke, Dan, Jonathan Barrett, Tony Latham have all brought different things to the group, and you know, kept it so that there's usually something new to find on each record, I think. Yeah.
Right. Well, it looks like to me that Luke might be getting some composer credits on the next album, and things are moving in that direction.
I would imagine so. Yeah. I mean, there's never been any kind of hard and fast rule about me writing all the music for the Tangent.
Right.
That's not it. As it happens, I have written most of it. Theo Travis has contributed a couple of tracks. Sam Bain, who was in the band at one point, she contributed a few. And you know, I've collaborated with Guy Manning on things. You know, so yeah, as I say, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Luke comes up with, what tracks he can contribute to it. We're working together on another project anyway, myself and Luke, on a kind of like classically orientated thing. Right. So, and he'll be composing some of that too. So.
I did see that. Did you want to speak to that at all? Was it one song in 4 parts, some sort of classical? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we're writing a kind of symphony, really. But like, it's going to be a symphony with lyrics, probably. I still haven't decided.
Okay.
You know, and it's. I really did like the kind of classical rock experiments of the 1970s, and feel that that's something that hasn't been really revisited since progressive rock music reared its head again in 1994. There hasn't been a great deal of that kind of exploration.
Right.
So we're just going to do something a little bit off the beaten track for the Tangent. We did a version of the Rite of Spring by Stravinsky at one point, but unfortunately the publishers wouldn't let us release it. So this time around we decided to write our own piece of music, and we've been able to also take some pieces by Debussy and look at those as well. So yeah, so that's happening.
So, but despite the changes in the lineup, at least for me, the one thing that stayed the same is you're really a poet. I mean, it's almost you're a prog poet. The imagery and that comes from your lyrics is really outstanding. And I wasn't surprised to find out that you're also a writer as well. Are you published? Or you written some books? Or
I have, of course, I had one novelette published with a Tangent record, in fact.
Oh, okay.
A story not as good as the book, which
Right.
was a kind of humorous science fiction story about progressive rock music.
Right, right.
I'm currently in the middle of my second novel at the moment. I'm writing this novel. It's called 199 Meters. It's not science fiction. It's actually a kind of it's set in the future, but it's set in a world where it's in a world after petrol. You know,
Okay, right.
In a world of that's gone back to more simple ways of living. So it's not kind of like what you'd think of as being science fiction, but it's still in a futuristic setting, but just not the future that we used to dream of when we were kids, if you see what I mean.
Right, right.
There aren't any monorails
Right.
and moon shuttles and things like that.
Exactly.
You know, people don't eat pills and dehydrated pizza. It's a different thing altogether. But yeah, I like that, and I think that the thing is that to me the lyrics are everything, and I can't really write the music unless I know what it's about. And you know, I'm not meaning to sort of like say that, you know, to claim that we're better as a result than anybody else, but what happens is that, you know, some bands think, you know, it's been 2 years, we better make an album, you know, or something like that, or we need to get one out this year before the tour. It's just never been like that for us at all. We can't make a record until we've got something to make a record about.
Right.
You know, and the idea will sort of like start to cross my mind, and I'll start thinking of ideas of how that could work, and eventually it comes out, you know. So
Right.
you know, we've been quite prolific since we started. You know, we've done 6 studio albums now.
Right.
And
3 live ones as well, right?
yeah, 3 lives. Yeah. But like, you know, the studio albums are just a long, time-consuming affair. At the moment, I've started to get the idea for the next one, and it's all a question of how it pans out. You know?
Right, right.
But you know, the lyrics will come first, and it's a story that I like to tell within the lyrics, and usually not kind of, not in a rock opera way, not in a kind of, you know, not like Clive Noel and Oliver Wakeman telling us sort of like. I prefer it to be a little bit more, you know, laid back from the.
Not really in the foreground.
Yeah, that's right. So you have to listen to it to understand what it's about, and of course they're my own stories, and they're stories of people I've met, and you know, and their futures and pasts and all that kind of thing coming together. So.
Right, right. So you've got actually a lot of dates lined up. It seems like you know, you were actually mentioning a story about how, you know, you only had 1 date in your planner. You know, you needed Beardfish to go ahead and play it for you. But now you got about 5 or 6 in the works. I wouldn't mind. I think there's 3 in June.
There's 3 in June. There's a couple of a big festival coming up in London in July, and then we're in Germany and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, this is not a kind of Porcupine Tree world tour,
right?
You know, but that's not really what we're about. You know, we're about doing the odd gig and everything. We have to spend most of the time focused on writing the music and things.
Right.
So we can't get about as much as we'd like to. Besides which, you know, costs are very prohibitive these days. You know?
Right.
It's not that easy to move a progressive rock band around anymore. You know.
Right. Well, the 3 in June are all in, I think, the first week or so. Are they close to each other?
Yeah, yeah, that's it. We're doing we're playing the Spirit of '66 in Belgium, and we're over in the Beurterdij in Holland.
Right.
Then we've got, as I say, a festival in England. Then there's one in yeah. Then there's another one in England, and then as I say, Germany. So. Right,
right. And you've got a great lineup for Exterminate, or is it Exterminate again?
It's called Celebrate, yes.
Okay. Oh, isn't it at the Dome? I thought. Oh, the Hippodrome.
The Hippodrome in London. I mean, it's in Kingston. Yeah, it's going to be a great day. Is that? Well, great couple of days.
Right.
You know, you've got an awful lot of, you know, the best in British progressive rock music, I suppose. Although we've got the addition of the Mars Hollow, which is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
You know, because they're going to blow the roof off the place. So that's a really nice thing that they've organised this year. You know, and it's a good lineup with people like IQ, It Bites, Magenta. Obviously, we're playing. Tiny Fish are playing. Sean Filkins is playing. Who isn't playing?
Yeah.
Sean Filkins. Yeah. It's just what's really, really good about it is that the people who organised it decided to make this a show about the bands who are still doing it every day. You know.
Right.
You know, this wasn't about bringing some lost legend back from the 70s and putting them on stage and sort of everybody else plays a humble support to the return of Druid or something like that. You know? This was, you know, about supporting the bands who've been doing okay, you know, for such a long time. I mean, you know, IQ, of course, have been carrying the torch for progressive rock for over 30 years, which is a phenomenal achievement, and one that has to be respected. It Bites, of course, they did come back and they've changed very much, but they're still making that presence felt. But you know, the fact that Magenta, the Tangent, and Tiny Fish, who've been very hard-working progressive rock bands, have, you know, just been the guys who just would not let it go. You know, they're very persistent people. We kind of respect each other. We also have a friendly rivalry. You know? And you know, I really love Magenta. You know, I mean, like we see each other, we trade insults, but you know, they're kind of great. You know, so.
Well, it's interesting that you say that on two fronts. One, because at Summer's End when you played that, and I think maybe Classic Rock Presents Prague was there. He said, "Hey, you better take a picture of Luke and Dan over here because you might need it for your 2040 album cover because they're always putting on."
Yeah, I mean, like, I was just a slight dig at them. Of course, that particular magazine, you know, good job though it's doing. I mean, they do, of course, have to sell it based on the fact that, you know, they need to put a picture of either Pink Floyd, Yes, Genesis, or ELP on the front.
Right.
And, you know, it's, you know, I just find it's a little bit sad when that has to happen, but I can understand why it does happen, and I can understand why Future Publishing had to take that direction. But, you know, you need the celebrity. But these guys who put this on thought, well, no, what we'll do is we will absolutely support the current scene to the hilt, and, you know, for that reason, I think everybody should be there. You know, I'd probably be there myself even if I hadn't been invited to play. So it's really, really great show.
That is great. You know, and we, you know, in America we kind of had an issue where I think Nearfist kind of burnt out because they didn't have that grand old band to headline the show anymore, and so they kind of they're doing one last go, and then that's it. And actually, Rossfest used to do that. They would have Renaissance or Barclay James Harvest, and they kind of said, you know what, we're gonna do the bands that are actually putting it out there and trying to make a living doing it. You know, now.
I kind of respect that, and I hope that will proliferate. You know, I mean, you know, I don't want to sound bitter or anything. Because, you know, a lot of the guys from the 70s, from the original wave of progressive rock music, are, of course, my heroes, people who I've always respected and admired. I have to say that when all is taken into account, I think that the majority of these people haven't really helped. You know, you haven't seen a famous band from the 70s being supported by the Flower Kings yet. You haven't seen a stadium gig where Yes, for example, have invited Beardfish to play with them. You know, these things have been, you know, very, very difficult to overcome, and you know, it would have been very, very nice that when Genesis came back and did the let's clean up all the money in Prague tour.
Yeah.
For a year.
Yeah.
I took a year off. I saw Genesis are coming back, so that's it. There's no more money left in Prague. I am going off for a year. That was it. And during that time, when they came back, they made no new album.
Right.
They released no new music. They just came back with the greatest hits tour and had a DVD package, a box set of every single gig on the tour. They just hoovered the money up and didn't think at all to in any way support any of the bands who are in effect continuing their legacy. You know, because that's an important thing. I think that had I, being the person I am, realised that, you know, I'd left a legacy behind and that there were other people working inspired by me, that I would really want to support them. And I feel that, you know, love these bands though I do, there's been very little kind of cross-pollination between the old guys and the new. Obviously people like Portnoy, he's been very supportive, but you know, he's not an original guy himself, you know.
He's second generation.
He's definitely second generation. Of course, Truavas and Portnoy and they, you know, really got together and worked with Neil Morse and Roy Stoltz, which was a fantastic band to start with. You know, and I think that was a really good example, and I wish there'd been more of this kind of thing and more bands being prepared to introduce somebody new. You know, Porcupine Tree have always introduced new people, and that's kind of been a good thing, but I wish there'd just been more of this.
I think it's a fair point. I mean, it's a fair criticism. It doesn't sound bitter to me at all. I think that it's true. I mean, you know, I do these interviews in the radio shows, Labor of Love. I trying to get the music out. I would like to see somebody, even if it wasn't a band, somebody with a little bit of. There's going to be somebody out there that gives a darn, and has some money or some star power that could go ahead and get the word out about this music. I think there's millions of people that would like maybe at least 10% of this music, but it'd be their favorite 10%. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. But we're up against, you know, what is essentially a conspiracy between most of the major media organisations of the world. You know, I mean, it's kind of like the deal. You know, progressive rock is a no-go zone. You know, it's no matter what happens, you know, they're not going to cover it. I mean. Just as one example, the BBC, my favourite love-to-hate organisation in the world, I mean, they of course always have a presence at the Glastonbury Rock Festival in Britain, which is one of the biggest rock festivals in the world. A really big thing with the creme de la creme of all the current bands, and the BBC cover it, you know, and they film all the stages and everything like that. And the year that Yes played, they invited Yes to do this, to do the show, and there was the Oliver Wakeman lineup that they were doing, and of course the BBC switched the cameras off. They didn't even bother to film them. Wow. You know, they filmed everybody else, but Yes, progressive rock, cameras off. So they never even filmed it, and never showed a morsel of their performance. And you know, you're looking at a band who have, you know, a 40-year career, multi-million selling albums, going platinum all over the world, records that people are still pulling out of the sleeves, out of their record collections and putting on a monthly basis, because I do, and I know you do, and I know thousands and thousands of people all over the world are still taking those records out and listening to them, whereas they are not taking the Sham 69 album out. They're not taking, you know, some of the stuff that the BBC is so vocally supported throughout the years. So we're up against this all the time, and so even when the giants come back, you know, there's nothing really that sort of like helps the music continue, and it's a very big problem. So the point is that, you know, the rest, we've just got really obstinate. We're fucking just decided we're not having this. We will just carry on, you know, and you know, maybe we'll end up as some kind of heroes to a younger generation who finally discover what we did between 1992 and 2012. You know,
Right.
It's been a 20-year period of the resurgence of progressive rock music, and you know, I think you can count the number of bands who've actually had proper success with it about on one finger.
Right, really.
You know, and the ones who've had moderate success on one hand, and you know, and the rest are just sort of like really struggling. But you know, sometimes the struggle is what makes the music so good, so vibrant, and you know, we often have discussions about the fact that usually the majority of people's music was made on their way to fame. Is usually better than the stuff that they made when they were famous and rich, because there was more passion and more conviction within them. And you know, we've had the advantage of never quite having made it, so that we're always trying to make our best record. We're always putting everything we possibly can into doing it, you know, because it has to be the one. Every time. I've made about 14 albums that have to be the one, and rest assured I will make a 15th that has to be the one.
You know, that's a great place to end. I want to thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure.
It's been a pleasure too.
Okay, and we'll make sure to come and see you sometime soon at a show.
And I'll try and get some teeth for next time.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, all the best.
See you later.
We'll,
Take care.
thank you.